sound. Okay, we are live. Welcome to the Rye Historical Society's cemetery tour, where we social distance as we tell you about the history in the cemetery. We're going to introduce ourselves first. I'm the narrator, Ginna Macdonald. This is
Debbi Toohey, board member, as Ginna is.
Herlihy, board member.
And our historian, who knows all the answers to the questions.
Some of them.
So please send your questions if you have them. I think you're able to comment. If not, I apologize. Okay, let's get to it.
Welcome, everybody. We're so glad to have you on a non-rainy, breezy kind of day, as you see from our attire. Thanks for joining us. Oh, and thanks for joining us. Speak up, and thanks for joining us today as we amble along through the Rye Central Cemetery. And I'm stealing from somebody when I was doing some research. I loved this term that she used, which was tombstone tourism. And I don't know about you, but I'm somebody that when I go to different places and visit, I always love finding a cemetery, walk through it, and try to figure out what the stories are there the best that I can. But today, we have a little bit more information than just guessing the story. Alex?
So, it's been so much fun with Debbi starting last year. We hoped to have our first tour, which was great now. Now, of course, we've made this to be a live tour for all of you, and here we are in this form. But what I'd like you to do is to imagine it's the year 1802, and we are looking down through these gravestones. This was the first public burial place in Rye. And the oldest gravestone we've been able to find, we're going to walk over to in a minute. Behind us in 1802 would have been a second congregational church, which replaced the first one in 1726. So the second one lasted until 1837. That was torn down and replaced with the third one, which burned in 1959, and hence the 1961 fourth one that we have today.
Let's walk down to the first location, which houses the family of the Garlands. Oh God, I mean, they're permanent rest in a beautiful location down here.
Can you hear?
We're calling this our inaugural cemetery tour. We do have plans to add different stones at different points in time in the future. Looking forward to that, and the information will pop out. Okay.
So I have one person here, actually Alex's wife, who says she does not have sound. Can somebody else check in and give a thumbs up if you have sound? Oh, then on somebody else they said sound is good on their end, so we'll continue.
Alex, this is Colonel Benjamin Garland.
So,
Let's get
Colonel Benjamin Garland operated the Garland Tavern from 1756 to 1800, and he died in 1802. And Jenna, if you would just point the camera over there, we can see the Garland Tavern. There it is.
beautiful yellow house with black
With the dormers
shutters
in there. Yeah, it's the only house you can
on
see.
Central.
Yeah, right on Washington Road by the monument.
Colonel Benjamin was 67 when he died, and he is joined by his wife Sarah Garland. She was born in 1803. She died at the age of 66. And we also have William Garland, and it says, "Sacred to the memory of William Garland, Esquire, merchant of Portsmouth, who died at Greenland, July 1820. He was 45 years old."
So we're going to walk down through this old burying ground, which still is part of the church. It's not part of Central Cemetery, but people think of it as all in one. And there are other founding Drake. And they're all considered founding families who came here in the first 2 centuries.
All right, I have a notice that somebody said the sound is very weak. So if you guys can just talk as loudly as you can.
All right, thank you for letting us know that.
Yes.
Were they able to hear me?
Just barely.
Oh, no.
And the young lady, she couldn't hear at all.
Uh-oh.
That's unusual, let me tell you.
And please, if you have any questions along the way, just put them into a comment and I will ask our historian.
I will point out, just because we will another tour, be talking more about the Obelisk over here, and this family, which is
The Goss family.
the Goss family, that's correct. But we're planning to concentrate on them on a second tour in the future.
Right, so these are all 1800s gravestones. Now, as we walk along here, of course, this is one of the most beautiful views in Rye, coming down Rye Ridge. The town center was built on a ridge, and we're walking down the ridge into the main part of the cemetery. And while we're walking, I just want to mention that this area that we're leaving now, you might think it was just all people from the 1800s buried there, but in fact, there were a lot of plots that continued to be sold off in the 20th century, and people continue to be buried here in plots, so it's still a very active area for burials.
Okay, so we're getting some ideas of that you guys would be better facing the camera, so I don't know if I should turn this around and just be pointing it in your general direction to get sound.
Yeah.
But then I won't be able to.
Oh, just stop a second. Okay.
Okay.
Let me get in over here.
All right.
Okay, ask them if they can. I wish we could find out if they can hear me, because I can speak as loud as I need to.
Okay, this is the test. Can you hear Alex now?
Can you hear me? Test. We just walked through the oldest part of the.
I'm getting thumbs up. Okay.
Okay, and can you hear me now? We're headed off to a personal stone that has a lot of current stories from Alex's family background here in Rye. Okay, great.
All right. Awesome. Thank you, audience. So I guess you guys just need to turn around when you're talking.
I hope they heard about Benjamin Garland, the colonel who ran the Garland Tavern and was buried up there in 1802. I hope they heard that. That's the oldest burial plot. Now we're going to walk down. This area here that we're walking into is called the Bartlett Field. And this part of the cemetery was purchased in 1938. So this is the second newest part of the cemetery. Here we have, let me get over here.
Yep. Socially distanced. Beautiful piece of pink granite. And I'm not sure, Ginna, if you can show this, I'm not sure what you call that ridge of black there. Granite is igneous rock, I know that. I'm not sure what this is, but I just love this stone. And I pointed this out to Alex, and Alex just had this huge recognition. He's like, I can't believe.
So this gravestone is very close to the Herlihy stone where my parents are buried, which is just 4 stones that way. And I don't ever remember seeing this, and I can't believe my brother and I all these years missed it. So I don't know how long this has been here, but it may have been put up when Dr. Katz's wife died in, you can see back here, in 2014.
Yeah.
But Dr. Katz himself, Isaac Initz Katz, was born in 1920 in Europe. In World War II, he and his family were captured and they ended up in Auschwitz. And in 1945, when he was 25 years old, he was liberated by the Russians. Obviously went to medical school somewhere, but what we know is he was living here in Rye, down at Rye Beach on Ocean Boulevard. And my father took me to visit him in the 1950s at his house. Dr. Katz was a beloved person in the community because he was not only acting as sort of the unofficial town doctor, but he, arranged for ambulance service and was the person that people turned to for medical help. Sadly, his life was cut short when he died in 1968 at the age of 48 years. And when I went to visit him, he actually showed me the number on his arm where they put it, all of the people who were in these death camps.
All right, I'm going to take a moment to turn us around. Jennifer Stevens, Rye resident, and she does a lot of this for the chamber, said I should do it like a tour guide and have the phone facing you guys, and I'll walk backwards.
Okay. We're all walking backwards.
So,
It's going to be hard, Ginna. You don't have to.
I don't know.
No, Ginna,
That
just
might be
no? Okay, I'm turning it back around. I
Say, yeah, when we get to our next location, we'll do a little bit of like about a minute quick walk.
Jennifer, I think this is a sign that you need to volunteer for us when we do video tours.
So while we're walking, I'm just going to say a few other things, okay? So in 1893, the town purchased. Okay, hold on a second. She wants to show you something here.
This is just, I love the icons and things that people put down, and I didn't notice this when we were out here, you know, kind of developing things recently. I think that might be a new addition. It's beautiful.
Okay, so we are leaving now this section that's all defined by roadway, Bartlett Field. We're back on the roadway now, and we're going to walk over into Division 1. In this area that we're walking down now, it's a big triangle defined by the roads. Okay? This was purchased along with the Division 2 and 3, which we're going to, in 1893 from the Locke family for $850. And that was the original section of the cemetery.
I just got word that it's the tour guides that walk backwards and speak towards me.
That makes sense.
Okay.
Of course, the woods off to our, would be our left if we were in normal walking, would have been open farmland. You know, there's beautiful stone walls up there that everybody would go when they were walking here in the central cemetery.
And now it's part of the town woods, and one of the trails goes right along up here, parallel to this road that we're on.
Let's come take a look at this marker over here. And this has, one, it's unique because it is a granite pitching post complete with the iron ring, so somebody would have tied their horse up here. Secondly, it actually is a friend of mine. Mr. Malpass, Charlie, was a character who lived on Sea Road, and I knew him for probably about 15 years before he passed on. And his lovely wife, Ann Malpass, is a large proponent of all great things here in the town of Rye. She's very dedicated to the library. But I just think this is such a unique, beautiful marker, as well as noting that he's a veteran, and I wanted to pass that along.
As we walk down the road, I'm going to ask Ginna to just turn the camera and look back that way towards Central Road. The one other thing that happened in 1938, after the purchase of this big field, the Bartlett Field, for that section, that new section of the cemetery then, that same year, the Parsons family, that's Ginna's family, One Central Road donated the big strip of land that is today the town green. And that same year, the town built that stone wall to separate it from Central Road. And ever since then, we've been able to enjoy that as a wonderful gathering place for the community.
Hey Alex, what's that green building down there?
So this is a very interesting thing as we walk along. I'll go backwards without falling down.
Watch out there. It
But
is
you
not
will
a
see
beautiful
you
Victorian
will be
building.
seeing behind me this interesting little building, and we're going to get up close to it. It is a viewing station, and this was built when the cemetery was first laid out in 1893. And this is where the superintendent, who with his crew would dig the grave, and then would go inside this viewing station and wait until the family and friends had finished with the graveside service and had left. And then they would, in turn, finish the job, finish the burial. So that's that's there for. And there's some interesting records in there and some charts on the wall. And that little building is actually going to be restored soon.
It has a couple of wonderful treasures inside that are in ill repair, but I see a grand amount of opportunity for a collaboration perhaps sometime between the cemetery trustees and the Rye Historical Society, because there's a treasure trove of information that we could be collaborating in terms of markers, people's names, death dates, birth dates, and you know, we do a lot of genealogy assistance in people's research. So who knows in the future, especially if we can invite you to volunteer and join us in an endeavor like this, it's something that I think I would like to reach out and see if we might be able to start digitizing some of this type of information in the next few years or so.
Well, just so you know, we have 34 live viewers right now.
That's exciting.
And I got a comment from Candace Fulford saying, I've never heard of a viewing station before. Wonderful.
So something else as we're walking along here, by 1901, 232 of the original 314 lots had been sold. And the cemetery trustees expected that all the people who still had their family members buried in their farmstead graveyards, they expected them to disinter the remains and bring them here, as so many did do in the 1890s, but they were wrong. Over 60 families refused to do that, and those graveyards are still with us today, and you can see them listed on the town's website under Heritage Commission. All of the old family graveyards are still here, many of them alongside the road.
I know in reading the chapters from Parsons' History of Rye, which we do at 5 p.m. on Sunday nights, History Happy Hour, that a piece of information from some of the disinterring is that the founding fathers movement people were feeling like as the town was getting bigger, the opportunity to move stones into a central area, and as families branched out and didn't live on the family farm forever and sold properties and moved up country or wherever to continue their livelihoods, that it just became something that made a lot of sense for the towns to start doing at that point in time. And here it is, Alex.
Yeah, and just before we get to the top of the viewing station, anybody who's been to the town museum will see a beautiful gravestone. So the original stones that people used in the 16 and 1700s were slate. Then they started to use sugar marble in the 1800s. And this is very, very heavy. It's what you're looking at here. And the Sherman family gave us a gravestone that they found that it was being used as a step on their property on Harbor Road. And it is today leaning against the front of the museum. A 24-year-old man named Goss, who died in 1859. So you're welcome to come by and look. You can't get in the museum right now, but you can look at the outside of it. So that's an interesting thing. So here you can see there are windows on either side of the front door so that they can have a full view when the service was over and the people had left. Then they could go in and finish the burial. And people will get a chance to look in here later once it's restored. But it's just very interesting what this building was used for.
I think I took a couple of pictures yesterday, so when we conclude the tour, I can post a couple of pictures that I have of the maps there that are currently, it would be too dark in there as well, but I could post pictures of those for people that want to take a glimpse of it before further work is done. And so now we're going to go on to our stop number 5, which is right down this way. We're just going to enjoy the sun actually coming out again.
Ah, you got sun, excellent. So as we're walking along here, if you look down to your left, that's the newest part of the cemetery, and that was designed in the 1970s, purchased from the Perry family. And starting in the late 70s, people were buried with monuments, just flat stones on the ground. But starting in 2014, that section, you can start to have monuments above ground again.
I find this marker and interesting, and it's of the Foss family. And what I like about it, I'm not really great at this, but it's metal, and it's got a beautiful burnish to it, which I'm gathering probably was the way it was, not something that is weathered to that color. But this is the marker for Benjamin M. Foss. He was born in 1794 and he died in 1850. And his wife, Dorcas, who was born in 1793 and 1869, she died. So when I first came upon this, I was like, Dorcas, that's such an unusual name. So I did a little research yesterday, and Dorcas means gazelle. Also here, this is one of the first stones that we'll point out of the husband who's married to his wife. She dies, and then there's a remarriage here. And Mahitable, which is an interesting name, is the wife of J.M. Foss. Now this confuses me because you've got the M from Benjamin M, and there's nothing on this marker that talks about somebody with a J, so I don't know if sometimes people shorten Benjamin to Jamin.
And I'm not sure we have good signal here because a couple people are saying that they are having problems.
Okay, that's a shame. Interesting names.
Yep. There's this.
Yes, actually very well. Zidania also.
Yeah.
So great names. CV marker. So this is the CV family, and it's Harrison CV. We couldn't read this yesterday because of the lighting, but he died in October 1858 at the age of 36. And I'm going to do my best here because this is hard to read. He was a beloved husband, a kind and affectionate father, a friend to something with an ending D.
Yeah.
Died in the hope of immortality beyond the grave. I think we're all looking for that.
Yeah.
Here he is. We're still talking about him.
I know,
Yeah.
I know.
That's all we can hope for.
So we can honor you, Mr. Seavey.
Yes. Excellent.
Yes. Wow.
So this is Division 2, and then we're walking over now into Division 1 in a few minutes.
Somebody says lots of buffering, pixelating, and sound out.
Really? Oh, what a
Oh,
shame.
dear.
So this is Elizabeth S., the wife of Langdon Brown.
Yep.
And she died in October of 1848 at the age of 31. And what's interesting, there's a story here. So she dies.
People are saying, "Uh-oh, hello."
Are we
So
losing
I
them?
think we're
We gotta-
losing.
We gotta go
Was
to
our
the, we gotta go,
signal?
we gotta leave.
Oh, so
I think we have to go
Yeah,
into
but getting
Oh my
anything.
gosh, darn it.
So
Okay.
next time, what we've got to
Well, we're
do is we got to do a dry run with the camera to find out where we can go and where we can't go. Right?
Okay, we're going to go to the Reverend Corner.
Do you have any reception?
I can't tell what reception I have.
Oh, okay.
Let us know if you can hear us now while we walk over to the Reverend Corner of the cemetery. My nickname. Okay, good. This is great. So I came upon this with one of my childhood friends who was visiting about a year ago, and we were crawling all over the cemetery and looking at different stones, and literally you had to get on the ground to check this series out. But we came across not one but two reverends, and this first one is in memory of Reverend Samuel Sewell. And Alex, tell them about the leaning
Right. So
willow.
in the oldest gravestones, we haven't found any here, but in Portsmouth, you'll see skull and crossbones, quite blunt in the 16 and early 1700s, because death was just so prevalent. In the 1800s, there's a much more sentimental expression in the gravestone art, and a lot of times it's expressed by these weeping willows coming out of an urn. And that's what you see expressed here who died in the 1800s, minister on Star Island.
So Reverend Sewell departed this life in Rye, March 16, 1826. He was 61 years old. While officiating as a missionary at the Isle of Shoals, he was taken from the scene of his labors, has left to his friends the consoling hope that he has entered into the peace and received the reward of a good and faithful servant. Love that epitaph.
Can they hear us?
Yes, they're saying everything's good right now.
Fantastic. All right, here's another minister.
Okay, so this will definitely be a fill in the blank, Alex.
Oh, Liz Earlrick had asked, I hear you throughout wanted to know about the woman who died at 31. Darn.
Oh,
That's the one where we had bad
Yeah,
service and we left.
we had poor reception there.
Yeah.
I apologize.
Brown. That was the Brown family.
Yeah.
Right.
Oh, actually, so I could tell you what I've got for notes. So to summarize, Elizabeth Langdon Brown back there, she died October 9th of 1848, and her son Otis died that Christmas 1848. He was 9 months old. Her husband Langdon remarried, and he and his wife Elizabeth had a son in 1859, so later, who died on December 22nd at the age of 15 months. Actually, sorry, it was Langdon and Augusta. So you have, let's see, you have a man buried with his two wives, one obviously passed away, then remarrying, and just when you think about, he lost his first wife in October, and his child of 9 months died that Christmas. What a tragic year for that family.
We're very fortunate. Reverend Corner has told us so much. Look, when he becomes minister in Rye in 1784, that is the year before Rye becomes an independent town, no longer a parish. In the early 1800s, he gave a special sermon that incorporated all the knowledge that he had gained from being in Rye, including the names of the 39 Rye men who died in the Revolutionary War, an extraordinary number for a small town. So he was an invaluable person for Rye history. And as you can see, he himself died in 1844, but he was minister up until the 1830s. So, good 40 years or more on the pulpit.
I'll read the stone just in case you can't see it that way, which is Reverend Huntington Porter, died at Lynn, Mass, March 7th, 1844, at the age of 89. He was born in Bridgewater, Mass, March 27th, 1755, and he graduated from Harvard College in 1777.
In the middle of the war.
Yeah. He was ordained in Rye in December of 1784, and he was a kind husband, an affectionate father, a considerate Christian, and a faithful pastor. He calmly, oh my goodness, he calmly
Waited?
Well, he calmly did something.
Yeah.
And I do know from Parsons' history, he is extolled in Parsons' history of Rye as being just this remarkable, well thought out, incredible sermons, a real asset. So the two stones here, and they're very weathered and it's moss covered, so it's very difficult to read. But this is his first wife, who was Susannah Sargent, and they were married in 1786. She died, I don't have her death year. Can you see that, Alex?
No,
I cannot.
I can't. No.
And this stone is his second wife, who was Sarah Moulton, and they were married in 1797. So Sarah dies 1797, he died 1800. So Sarah, in the here in the right line, she's called his consort, and actually maybe I can read it. The Christian's labors, the bodies here believe no, I cannot. But she, on the stone in the right light, she is referred to as Huntington Porter's consort. And when I looked that up, what it actually means at that point in time, the consort is a woman who predeceased her husband. So that's that story. And then I also found out that the other word that goes in that same time frame, these are words that were used in 17th and 18th century commonly. And the other word, which we would call a widow, is a relict, R-E-L-I-C-T. And that's a woman who's surviving her husband. So there you have it.
So now we have a story of fate, and Debbie is going.
Oh, yes, excuse me.
Over here.
How could I possibly forget this one?
This story reminds me of something I read in the newspaper a few years ago, but Debbie will first tell you about this story.
Okay. So, just in case you're out here wandering around and you sort of have a sense of where we are, we've just left what I call Reverend Corner, and perpendicular, these stones are perpendicular to where the reverends lie with their wives. That's how I always remember to find this little series, and it's only this first one that I can read, and this is a Philbrick. So this is our friend Sheridan. He was the son of Jonathan Philbrick and his wife Sarah, and he was instantly killed by lightning while at school. And he died June 30th, 1824 at the age of 11 years old. Can you imagine being in the classroom and having that situation? How frightening that must have been. Yeah. And it's actually, again, researched through Parsons' History of Rye, which you can get at the Rye Historical Society.
Exit through the museum.
That's right.
I mean, through the gift shop.
There were other incidents when I was doing some research where that did happen on an occasion.
Right. So what it made me think of, as we know, I mean, this is fate. And I remember a few years ago reading in the Herald about a boy at that York Middle School, just about the same age, who was out at recess just sitting with a friend. And that's why, and it was windy. And that's the message. Don't go anywhere near any trees when the wind's blowing, because a dead branch came down and killed him.
We have a question here from Jody Jackson. She asks if the folks who died on the shoals were brought back to the mainland to be buried.
No, there are, in some cases they may have been, but there is a very prominent graveyard right out in front of the Oceanic Hotel, and I know there's a lot of Caswells buried in there. I'm sure in other cases they may have been brought back because there were family graveyards where they wanted to be buried. And there are probably other burial places out there that Shoals historians will know.
All right. Thank you.
That's a great question.
And as we walk along, we're going over to the Green stone now, Green family. So I'm just going to hold this up so you can look at it. This is the 4th grade map that John Koshas, the cemetery superintendent, showed us. And right now we're in Division 3. There's the garage. There's the new section we talked about, where there's the turnaround and beautiful trees. So we're in the bottom of Division 3, top Division 3, top Division 2, 1. And then we came down along here in Division 1, and there's, of course, the Bartlett. Just gives you a sense of how the cemetery is laid out.
Alex has some personal stories coming up next as we go over to the Green family stone. Yes,
We have a romance coming up.
Well, I hope with the trees and everything that the reception holds out.
If not, we'll move away and go over there.
Little strawberry plants.
And then Linda Fowle just said Sagamore Cemetery in Portsmouth has survivors buried from Isles of Shoals.
I'm
also.
not surprised.
Well, you
I
know,
bet they're all
having
over.
asked that question, I'm assuming that the missionary was brought over here from the Shoals because he died while he was giving his service.
Yes,
So
and he was brought back here.
I assume that that was the case. So
Not very people on Star Island.
right.
So here we have the Green family.
Let's just make sure
And-
that you hear us from here too.
Give us a thumbs up if you hear us well.
We have to speak.
I will. Okay? Can you hear us at the Green family? Can they hear us?
I'm not getting any thumbs up yet, but it could just be taking a while. I guess just I'll let you know
Okay.
if they say
Okay,
anything.
so Orrin Green, born 1845, was the school superintendent in Rye. And that means he had to go around and check out all 4 of the neighborhood schools, south, west, east, and central. And so when he went to the West School in 1886, he was immediately smitten with teacher Clara. And 2 years later, they were married, and their first child was Harry, who was a true town character and lived in the woods off Washington Road behind the family homestead, a law unto himself and a maker of great hard cider. And many people made the trek down into the woods, including my father and grandfather and brothers, to enjoy Harry and his cider. His brother, Charlie Green, was a true town character, and he stayed on and lived alone in the family homestead, which is just to the right as you go down Hunter's Run. There's the farmhouse right there by the beginning of Hunter's Run off Washington Road. And Charlie was a farmer. He had a wonderful apple orchard. He actually exported apples to Britain. He sold the land where Webster of Rye is now. That used to be his property. And he was a selectman. He also managed basketball games in the town hall. And apparently they were quite violent, and they spilled outside with fights. This was in the 20s. So that great hall has seen all kinds of action. All right, so we're going to go over now to top of Division 3.
I just got the low power mode
Okay.
warning.
Power mode.
So,
You're
or
about to
low power, yeah. So, if by chance, well, I'm going to let people know, if I die,
Not you.
if my phone dies before we're done with this, we are going to switch phones. Debbie brought her phone, and I asked her to have it charged up, and we'll be back on with the rest of this.
Okay.
All right.
And we are winding down. So, we really like this stone over here because, well, one, it's
Oh.
next door to the grandparent who's a Locke. So we're really trying to get all of our families here. And this is Charles Locke and his wife Louisa. But what's so special and lovely about this stone of Dorothy Burdick Benedict, who was born in 1923 and she died in 2012, is that not only is she the wife of Robert Benedict, yay for him, she's the granddaughter of Louisa Locke, so she's a Locke, and it's just lovely epitaph. Happy summer memories with her grandparents. So you could just picture her, Ginna and Alex,
Yes.
on Jenna's Beach or hanging out at Locke's Neck. I mean, you could it's lovely because
It is.
so many of us, or many of you, have that childhood memory, and I'm fortunate enough to have that memory when we can get back to the beach. But it's just, I've always loved that epitaph.
So now we're going up to something we found just recently, and it's a very interesting stone, and immediately caught my attention. Being Irish, the name Herlihy, and I have visited my family plot in Boston, huge Catholic cemetery there. Just goes on forever, and it's filled with Celtic crosses. Well, here we have one in the Rye Cemetery, and I don't know if it's the only one, but very interesting. So we're going to take a close look at it. Beautifully
Carving.
sculpted. So we have the name here of Seamus Christopher de Bruyne, born 1947 in Ireland, died 1992 in Mexico City. And look at the artistry. this beautiful Celtic cross.
And the epitaph?
There is nothing to seek but to seek.
I mean, there you go. Life at its best. Be inquisitive.
And now, Ginna gets to talk a little bit about her family. So we're going to show you the stone. One of the biggest monuments in the whole cemetery.
It's massive. And this monument that we're coming up to is the Parsons family. Jenna?
All right.
Jump in?
Well, I will. I don't know all of them, but Langdon here was the writer of the History of Rye back in 1903. Annie Locke was his wife. They were the parents of my grandmother, Corinne Macdonald, who I used to come and visit every summer to Rye. Yep, there's Corinne. She died in 1991.
And this, they go together, right?
And yep, James Ronald Macdonald.
He was the bookbinder, right?
He was the bookbinder.
Right. And this
And-
man is the brother.
So that, yes, I believe that was my father's older brother
That makes sense.
who passed away before
At a young age. Oh,
my
yeah.
father. Yeah, he was
3
very young.
years.
And yeah, these are my cousins down there, Bob, John, and Ann Parsons. I didn't know very well. I was 10 years old when she died, but she was just a teenager. And that was very sad when we heard that she had passed away.
And we should just
Read her, well, her name is Anne.
Ann Pine Parsons.
So if
we're gonna.
we
Yeah, why don't you do that first?
want to,
and-
okay.
Yeah.
So we're going to go right over here. And this is so lovely. So this stone, and I have not looked at all of the initials of everybody on the other stones, but this is the Parsons family. And this stone is to pine, so it has the emblem of the willow and a rose, I believe,
Yes.
there. And it says, "Pine, O daughter mine, sweet, gentle, thoughtful, kind, go forth, cast about your noble spirit, reflect, wonder, love, never fear."
Beautiful.
It's
is
just
beautiful.
incredible.
And that is her footstone, right? They just didn't put the APP on there. They put the beautiful epitaph instead.
Ah.
Very
And
lovely.
to Jody, yes, Corinne had a cottage down by Ray's on the harbor, and that is where my parents now live.
That's right. So it
Oh.
actually is a cottage that's right on Rye Harbor. And as you're coming around and you go over the bridge and you're heading north on Ocean Boulevard, and you pass over, you know, where the marsh comes in, it's the first house on the right. Is that correct?
No. It's down closer to the state park, and I like to say it's.
Isn't it a cape?
Oh well, no, it's been built up now,
Oh, okay.
so it was redone,
But
but
it faces the harbor, correct?
faces the harbor. I tell people it's the house with the garden in front.
Okay.
My grandmother was a prolific gardener, as was as was my mother. So gardens have just been a big part of their lives and mine.
And in the 1980s, I remember going down and picking up Corinne and bringing her to the library. She gave a wonderful program on perennials.
Aw.
That is a great memory of her.
Yeah.
I have her peonies in my garden right now. I dug them up when my parents were having the house redone, planted them up in Goshen, New Hampshire, and then when I moved down here, I got them out and brought them down. So
We should mention one other thing about Langdon Parsons, who wrote the history of Rye. That book apparently is available online, so you can actually just read the Parsons history online. It doesn't have any of the maps in it. And of course, we'd love to have you buy it from us, but obviously, for a lot of people, it isn't is accessible. But if you can just look at it online, the whole second half of that book is filled with genealogy. And many of the people who are buried in this cemetery are in that genealogy. And there are wonderful anecdotes. It's not just statistical information, there's anecdotal information as well. So it's an absolute gold mine of Rye history to the families.
All right.
Well, and as a reminder, when you tune in on Sundays for History Happy Hour, we are taking turns weekly, we board members, to read one chapter at a time for about 20 minutes, and then that is preserved on our website. And so if you went to Rye, New Hampshire Historical Society.org, click onto our website, go at the homepage down to the bottom, you'll see 3 icons, and if I'm not mistaken, it's captured not only on our YouTube, but as well on the Facebook.
Mm-hmm.
So if you don't capture us live, capture us on the web, on our website.
Yep, we've made it our mission to increase our digital presence. We got a very generous grant from the New Hampshire Charitable Foundation for some iPads, and so we're trying to up our game with having stuff available online.
We should also note too, standing here with this huge Parsons monument, of course right behind me is another one right here. Donald, who I knew, who died in 2014, came to the museum many times, but look, there's another one over there. And that's true of many of the families here. There's more than one huge monument with footstones.
The different branches.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, different branches of the family, exactly.
I think that probably concludes our day here, and your battery is still
Nice, we made it!
Good.
Yay!
Thank you for bearing with us.
Yeah.
We hope next time we do this, we'll all be together, and we just hit the tip of the iceberg in this beautiful cemetery.
So with that, I think we should do the foot thing if at a social distance.
I don't know. Okay, here we go. Here we go.
Good job. Yay. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you.
Stay well. See you soon.